So with everyday folks looking for more ways to build wealth and invest creatively, startups have come on the radar of more and more investors. And for good reason. Investment in early stage companies can be some of the most lucrative investing out there, but not without some risk. The failure rate for startups is about 90%, meaning that if you invest in 100 different startups, odds are at least 90 of those investments are going to be worth $0. But even just one winner could make all the difference. Early investors in Facebook and Uber went on to make millions, hundreds of millions, or even billions of dollars from relatively small investments. Now, in the past, these investments were typically only available to the ultra wealthy. You had to, one, have connections to people in these companies, and two, you had to have the money to put up anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000 minimums just to get access to these startups. However, over the last 10 years, this has changed substantially due to the rise of startup investing platforms. One of the most popular of which is known as SeedInvest. So in this video, we'll be providing you with a full comprehensive review of the SeedInvest platform, including exactly how to get started on the platform and whether it is even worth using in the first place. Now, if at any point you want to sign up for SeedInvest yourself and start browsing their startups, you can do so using the link in the description and pinned comment below. But without further ado, let's dive right on in and start off with what SeedInvest actually is. Well, in essence, SeedInvest is a platform that connects startups with investors. And if a startup wants to raise money from investors, they can apply to be listed on the SeedInvest platform. Now, what happens after that application is largely what sets SeedInvest apart from many of the other startup investing platforms out there. This is going to be SeedInvest's due diligence process, which is honestly one of the most compelling reasons to invest through the platform. While many other large startup investing platforms will list hundreds of startups at a time and have very minimal requirements in order to get listed, SeedInvest is looking very carefully at each company that applies and making sure that their quality is high enough for the platform. And because of this, SeedInvest may only list, say, 10 to 12 startups at a given time, whereas larger competitors like Republic or WeFunder typically have over 300 active offerings at any given time. It's actually quite common for companies that get rejected from SeedInvest to go to some of these other platforms who will approve them much more easily. But just because SeedInvest has a strict due diligence process doesn't mean that you don't need to do any due diligence yourself. Any investment that is listed on the platform, you should be looking into very thoroughly before you do decide to invest. So that being said, how does SeedInvest actually work for investors? Well, as an investor, you're able to browse all of the available deals on SeedInvest absolutely for free. Each deal is going to provide substantial information about the company's financials and the vision to allow you to adequately evaluate whether it might be a company you'd want to invest in. So again, despite SeedInvest's strict due diligence process, you're going to want to make sure to look through all that information thoroughly before you put any money into the company. Now, after you settle on a company that you want to invest in, it's a pretty seamless process to enter how much you want to invest and then go through the investment process. You'll just need to answer a couple of questions and then confirm that your income or net worth is high enough in order to justify the investment. Unless you're an accredited investor, you'll have to keep your investment amount lower than 10% of either your income or net worth. So for example, if your income is $50,000 per year and your net worth is $100,000 per year, you'll be limited to investing $5,000 in startups through SeedInvest because that's 10% of your income. Now, when it comes to actually funding your investment, you'll have a number of different options, including a bank transfer, a credit or debit card, or a wire transfer. From there, your investment is going to be held in something called an escrow account until the company meets certain requirements. When those requirements are met, the funds are released to the company to use for whatever purposes they specified on their investment profile. At this point, SeedInvest recommends diversifying your startup portfolio to include at least 10 to 15 different startups to account for that high failure rate and significant volatility with startup investing. And while you could potentially look through dozens of different startups to land on a few that you might be interested in, there's also another option on SeedInvest that can speed up this process for you. This is called SeedInvest Auto Invest and is one of the more popular features on the SeedInvest platform. With Auto Invest, you're able to build up a profile of up to 25 different startup investments in a very hands-off manner. This is done by investing a small amount across a number of different companies listed on the platform. Now, in order to participate in the auto invest feature, you're going to need to have a minimum of $1,000 to invest on the platform. It's also important to note that there are no additional fees to use this feature, and you can also customize what criteria you want to look for in a startup to determine how much SeedInvest is going to invest in particular companies on your behalf. Then when new investments are listed on SeedInvest that meet your criteria, you'll automatically have a small amount invested into that company. And if you want to opt out for any of these companies for any particular reason, you're able to do that very easily as well. So now that you know how the platform works, let's talk about the returns that you could potentially expect as an investor on SeedInvest. Well, with investing in startups in general, the majority of your returns are likely going to come from a very small percentage of the companies you own. A recent study from Angel Research Institute showed that 10% of companies that angel investors allocate money to typically generate over 85% of their returns. This is another reason why it's so important to diversify your startup investment portfolio as opposed to just picking one or two companies. Now, the reason for this distribution is that most startups fail, and of those that don't fail, only a very small percentage end up succeeding in a very big way. Because of that, most investors' objective is to cast a relatively wide net and hope that they get a couple really big winners. Now, with all the investments you're making on SeedInvest, those are going to be equity investments, meaning that your payout only really happens if that company gets acquired or if they go on to IPO. In most cases, neither of these events would happen for at least 3 to up to 10 or more years, so it's important to have a longer time horizon with any startup investing you do, because if you want to sell out early, there's not really a way to do that yet. So now you know what to expect with returns, let's talk a bit about fees. With any investment you make, it's important to understand if any fees will apply. So with SeedInvest in particular, we have a full dedicated video detailing exactly how they make money and how fees work on the platform, but here is an abbreviated version for now. Basically, the SeedInvest business model revolves around collecting fees. These fees are paid both by investors and by the startups that are being listed on the platform. On the investor side, you're typically looking at about a 2% fee for any investment that you make. For startups, the fee is going to be significantly higher and typically about 12.5%. Now, just because you're not paying this fee as an investor doesn't mean it doesn't apply to you, because if a company knows they're going to be paying roughly 12.5% in fees, they might raise additional money to compensate for those fees. For example, say a company was going to raise $1 million on SeedInvest, they might instead raise $1.25 million in order to compensate for that 12.5% fee they know is coming down the line. So some of your investment could end up going towards that fee, even though you're not the one directly footing the bill. Now, while some may think that that fee seems awfully high, SeedInvest does have a successful track record of over 235 successfully funded deals, so for many startups, that fee is worth paying in order to hopefully increase the odds that they are able to secure funding. So now let's break down the pros and the cons of SeedInvest to give you our final verdict on whether or not it's a platform worth using. Now, on the plus side, SeedInvest has been successfully funding deals since 2012 and has a track record of hundreds of successfully funded startups. Additionally, because of that strict due diligence process, they're able to attract many of the highest quality startups due to that reputation. They also accept fewer than 2% of the startups that apply to be listed, meaning that you're seeing the best of the best on the platform. Additionally, there's a low minimum investment of only $500. And the auto invest option allows for increased diversification without spending too much time researching individual companies. Now, on the con side, the fees on SeedInvest are going to be higher than virtually any other major startup investing platform. Additionally, some investments on the platform are only available to accredited investors, which may rule out many potential folks that want to get exposure to those companies. So that being said, what's our final verdict on the platform? Well, as far as startup investing platforms go, there's a number of things that you're going to want to evaluate when deciding which ones to use. With SeedInvest, you're basically paying for quality. Startups are paying a bit more, so you as the investor may end up paying a bit more as well, but you can know that the list of startups you see on the platform is a highly curated list of typically only about a dozen different companies, whereas if you go to many of the other platforms and look at hundreds of different startups, it can be very overwhelming and time-consuming to find the best ones to invest in. So SeedInvest is potentially able to save you a significant amount of time and narrow down your startup investing search to a few curated options. They've also been around for just about a decade, which is quite a bit longer than most other platforms out there. So if you're looking to dip your toes into the world of startup investing, SeedInvest is certainly a good place to start. Now, if you want to sign up for the platform or check it out yourself, we've got that link in the description and pinned comment below for your convenience. And if you want a full written comprehensive review that goes even more in depth than this video, you can find that over on our website, startupyields.com. The easiest way to find that is to head on over to Google, search for SeedInvest Review, and then click on the link for startupyields.com. We'll see you over there.